As we start session 5 of Introduction to Foreign Missions, we need to remind ourselves that last session we started talking about the importance of surveying the field. And we talked about the fact that you need to go and do a survey because it is in essence counting the cost. It's seeing if I can do this or not, or if during this survey God's going to reveal something to me that says, no, this is not what I want for you. It's also seeing what I'm going to have to do this, both in physical preparation of items and finance, and also in emotional preparation of the things we're going to have to encounter when we get here. And it just helps you to get ready by counting the cost. Now, there are some that would say, well, it costs too much money, it's just not worth it, just get your stuff together and go, and when you get over there you figure out you need something else, well then, just adjust as you go along. Others would say, well, this is just a lack of faith. If God's called you to do it, there's nothing to talk about, just say yes to the Lord and get over there and get the job done. However, the reality is that a person who feels a call to do foreign missions and then applies that call to a specific location, they need to go to that location and see. There's a confirming factor in going there, if that's God's will or not. That doesn't mean that it's not His will for them to do foreign missions, it just might not be that spot. And I know of people who have went and done survey trips, and before they left they were pretty convinced, but after the survey trip they came to the conclusion that wasn't the Lord's will. And I say that's money well spent. Rather than getting there, struggling along for a couple of years, and then coming to the conclusion, it's far better to know that on the front end. And so you go and you figure out what it's going to take to live there. You determine what kind of plans you need to make and the kind of things that you need to get together. It's critical that your wife goes. Both of you need to go as a couple. If you're married, both of you need to go, and she needs to be a part of this. She needs to figure out what it's going to take for her to set up house and to take care of the kids and all the things that are going to be in store for her. She needs to be able to figure those things out. If you go by yourself, you won't do that. You'll just think about ministry, be the only thing you think about. So your wife needs to go. If your pastor can go, that'd be great. If some other representatives from the church can go. But do solicit the help of someone who is familiar with that country or familiar with countries like it, to where they can kind of guide you through some things on the survey trip and help you see what you need to see. Give you somebody to bounce things off of, to ask questions of, and so you need someone with that kind of experience as well. Well, before you go on the survey, I want to encourage you to do some pre-survey research, and this is very, very simple to do. Online, you can get all kinds of demographics that tells you what the population is, various things about the population, what the medium income is. That'll help you understand poverty and such, and all these things will give you a framework before you go on your survey, and also will end up serving you well when you go out on deputation. What's the past history of missionary activity there? Just because it went a certain way in the past doesn't mean it'll go that way in the future, but it'll be helpful to know and to hear what has been the situation here, and how have missionaries fared, and what kind of things did they try that were successful or unsuccessful, and try to get some information like that. And contact missionaries that are on that field. There could be no greater source of information probably than that person that's actually there doing it, and you might want to even set up an appointment with them if this is not the person that's doing your survey and kind of helping you that way. You might want to set up an appointment with some of those more experienced missionaries just to sit down and talk with them a little bit while you're there and get some ideas and some thoughts from them, and let them help you out that way. All these things will be very, very productive. So what do we need to learn then when we're on our survey? What kind of things are we looking for? Well, look for ministry perspective. From the ministry perspective, you want to see, okay, what seems to be the receptivity of the people? You know, can I just walk up to people and start talking to them, and are they receptive to that? Or do they seem to shy away from that? And what does that mean? Is this a place where you've got to make some inroads before you can really talk to somebody? How does all this work? And try to get a little bit of an idea about the receptivity of people, about the ability to adapt and minister to these people. You know, you need to think through. I mean, you can't predict everything and figure it all out, but you need to think through, okay, man, is this going to be a situation where in a few months we'll probably have made a lot of adaptation and be in a good position? Or is this a situation where it looks like it's going to take a long, long time? You need to be prepared for all of that and be thinking about all of that. Are you needed in that area? You know, you could go visit an area and, you know, maybe you were interested in that area because there wasn't very many, if any, of our churches. But once you get there, you might find, man, there's a ton of independent Baptists here, or, you know, Southern Baptists, something like that. And I know that, you know, we're not exactly the same, and we do want to see churches started that are completely, you know, doctrinally pure and such. But in a foreign country where there's probably areas where nobody's ministering, you don't necessarily want to go where there's a big group of people. And so you want to think about that and see if that's the situation or not. Are you even needed in that area? And can you get into the country? And if so, what will be required? You know, you need to get an idea of what the visa process, the work permit process is going to be like. What kind of documentations are required? Are there qualifications that have to be met? All those things are things you need to be thinking about, and you need to get some information on, because you may have a lot of work to do when you get back home. Or you may have less to do than you thought you would have. You just need to understand which way is it going to go, and you figure this out on your survey trip. What's going to be required for me to get into this country? So those are kind of from the ministry perspective. Now from the personal perspective, here's the kind of things you need to look at. You need to look at housing. First, you need to figure out, is it available? You know, maybe you want to go to this certain specific area, but if you're going to go there, it means you've actually got to build a house there and figure out a way to make that work. Or maybe you're going to figure out, okay, here's the area I really want to minister to, but there's actually no housing there. I don't feel led to go in and try to get some land and build a house. So this neighboring city over here, which is about 45 minutes away, is where the housing is. And so that means I'm going to have to live there and commute back and forth. See, just things that you need to know and understand that'll help you when you get on the field. What does housing cost? And what is housing like? What kind of adjustment is this going to be for my family? Or is it going to be very little adjustments? You know, you need to be able to figure those things out. You need to look at the automobile situation. You know, what type of automobile do I need? You know, maybe I'm going, but I'm going to pretty much be in this city, so I can just make, you know, do with a car. I don't need much. But maybe I'm going to have to go out into the villages, a lot of rough terrain. Okay, I need a Land Rover, and you need to figure out which, you know, what kind of vehicle you need. You need to figure out what they cost there. You need to figure out, could I actually have one brought in on a container, or is the taxes that I would face when I brought it in so heavy that it wouldn't be worthwhile? I mean, some countries, the tax to bring an automobile in is 100% of the value of the automobile. So, you know, you got a $10,000 automobile and it's going to cost you $10,000 to get in the country. All of a sudden it's a $20,000 automobile. Well, you can get one there for $15,000. So, you got to figure those things out. And I have seen some missionaries ship a vehicle to a place where there was no tax or very little tax, and it worked out well for them. But most countries, that's not the case, and you're probably going to be needing to buy a vehicle on the field. And so you got to figure out what the cost factors are. What about groceries? Where are you going to be able? You see, these are things that your wife will be very interested in. Where's she going to have to go to grocery shop? Will she have to go shop in the open market? Or are there grocery stores there? Or is there a town that you can drive to that's not, just a ridiculous distance where the shopping would be more like she's used to? And which would she prefer? Is it going to be a mixture of both? You need to figure those things out, because if she's going to have to shop in the open market, she's going to want somebody that has experience doing that to talk to her and help her understand, the best way to go about doing it. Clothing. Can you get clothing there, or do you need to bring clothing? And of course, you're probably going to bring some clothes with you, but clothes wear out. And when they wear out, can I get some more there? Or do I need to have, instead of taking 5 pair of pants, do I need to take 10 pair of pants to last me until my next furlough? And especially with kids, can we get the children's clothing here? Or do I need to go to the store and buy appropriate sizes for the next 3 years for my children before we come back on furlough? So you've got to think through all those things and try to figure out, maybe you can just get it there. It's no problem. You don't even have to worry about it. But maybe not. And then you've got to be prepared. What about the type of electricity that they have in this country? Is the electricity such that I can bring my stuff from America and just plug it right in? Which, in the vast majority of the world, the answer is no. Or is it on a 220 system instead of a 110 system, and anything I plug into it will blow up? And so how do I work that out? Do I need to buy transformers and converters? Or do I need to think, by the time I buy transformers and converters and all that stuff, it's just too expensive. I'm just going to buy new appliances when I get here, which is another thing you need to look at, is furniture and appliances, and kind of figure out, sometimes it might not be worth shipping. If you look at things and you look at the cost of things compared to having to ship a bunch of stuff over, you might say, we're probably going to have to do without some things, but I think we're better off just to buy our stuff when we get here. Rather than spending $10,000 to get a bunch of stuff shipped over, we'll just buy our stuff once we get here. And that might be the right way to go and the right thing to do. And you need to try to get some answers about that. Shipping. If I'm going to ship over, what am I going to experience when I get here? Where's the port where I would pick up what I had shipped over? What kind of arrangements do I have to make to get it trucked to my location? And so all those kind of things are important things for you to ask questions about and try to find out as much as you can. What about the water supply? Is the water here safe for us to drink? Or do we need some type of a distiller or some type of a filtration system, purification system? What do we need to be able to stay healthy and use the water here? Those are some questions you need to ask. What about my salary? What will it take to live? Now, our customary way of looking at it has been that the foreign missionary, even if he's going to an impoverished country, should not be expected to live like those that are impoverished, nor should he be expected to have a lesser salary just because he's living in a cheaper country. Because even though right there it's cheaper, there's other factors and cost expenses that he has is that most people wouldn't have in America. And so generally we look that his salary should be similar to the salary of missionaries that are doing work here in America. And that's what I think is good. But what if he's going to Scotland or somewhere in the UK? that won't be sufficient. He won't even be able to live off of that because the cost of living is so much more. Housing is a great deal higher and things of that nature. So you've got to be able to figure those things out. Will my salary work? What about banking? Can I bank here, or can I bank from America? A lot of countries now, you can go right up to an ATM and put your ATM ATM card in and pull money right out of your American account, and it's pretty convenient. But that might not be the case where you're going. What would you have to open an account? How can we get money transferred, from America to here? Those kind of things. Taxes. Are you going to be charged any type of taxes that you wouldn't normally be used to because you're living in a foreign country? What about the education of your children? Is there a place that they can go to school here? It might be that there's an international school that they could go to, or it might be that there's even a Christian private school that they could go to, or you might be homeschooling. Again, depending on the country you go to and how developed it is, the chances of them being able to just jump right in with whatever their public school system is very little chance that could happen. But again, depending on, you just have to check these things out, and sometimes you might be surprised where there is an international school that kids could go to. Another option in some countries is boarding schools where your children go and they stay there. Everybody's going to have to follow their own convictions on that. For me personally and my family, I could never imagine doing that. But I don't want to speak ill of those that have made that decision or might make that decision in the future. But that definitely wouldn't be for me and my family. So you've got to figure out those things and try to understand. So the whole point of a survey trip is that you're just getting all this stuff lined out. You've got your checklist, and even beyond your checklist, you're keeping your eyes and ears open to just pick up anything that might be of help to you. And you are going to have to be a learner. During that survey trip, you're going to have to be a learner. And then even after you get on the field, you are going to have to be a learner because there's so much you don't know. You are foreign, and everything there to you is foreign. And so you're going to have an open mind and spirit to listen and to catch the things that you need to know, and you can have a head start on that if you do a good job during your survey trip. We can go on a survey trip and we can be so enamored by, oh, look at this and look at all the things that do pull our heart, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it can end up being that we miss a lot of things we could have caught if we had just been alert, if our eyes had been open to what is going on. Well, that brings us then to talking about deputation. Deputation is a part of the process of preparing to go, getting ready to go to the foreign field. I want to say to you that you should not dread it. You should enjoy it. Don't dread it. Enjoy it. It is hard work. There's no doubt about that. But it's worth it. Some people think, oh my goodness, I just dread that. I don't want to do that. I wish I wasn't having to do this. And that's the attitude. And I understand that at a base level, we all just want to get to our field and do what we think God's called us to do. But deputation is part of that. It's an important part of it. Well, why is it important? Number one, you're building relationships with people in the local churches. And by building those relationships with the people in the local churches, that's going to end up helping you down the road. You're real to them. You're not just a name and a picture on a piece of paper. You're very real to them. And so that's a very beneficial thing to know that you have that connection. It's something that you can count on and can depend upon. Not only are you building relationships, but it also allows you to represent God's work. Not only is this a chance to go and say, hey, I need your prayers and I need your support, but it gives you a chance to represent missions in general, and churches need that from you. They need missionaries to come and visit them and to say, yes, this is me and this is my family and this is our field of labor and here's the specifics about us. But they also need you to say in general, here's what God is doing, here's the work of missions, and to excite them and ignite them for that cause. You represent His kingdom work in general, and as it applies to you. You represent missionaries everywhere in all reality in what you're doing. Also, of course, deputation is important because it is the primary method of raising your funds. You know, it's going to cost money to do what you are endeavoring to do, and you need to be able to raise the funds to make it possible. And please do not view it as begging. Do not view it as begging. I've heard that said about missionaries. I've heard that said about deputation appointments. It is not that at all. Now listen, when you go, you don't want to make the money the main thing. You need to let people know that you need their support. You may even need to let them know some of the specifics about the amount of money you're trying to raise and how far along you are in that. You know, so if you say, yeah, we would appreciate you praying about the possibility of supporting us. We need $5,000 a month, you know, for our personal support, and currently we have 25% of that. We're praying that several more churches will come on board with us. In addition to that, we're going to have relocation expenses and the purchase of a vehicle. These things will cost X amount of dollars, and we currently have this much money for that. Please pray about what God would have you to do concerning these things. Zoom. And you keep going. So you don't try to act like, well, I don't want to be a beggar, so I'm not going to say anything about it. But at the same time, you don't belabor the point. You just mention it, and then you move on. And listen, people know why you're there. They're not in the dark as to why you're there. And if they like you, and if they feel that you presented your work with passion, and that this is something very valuable for them to be involved in, they'll get involved. If they're able, they'll get involved. So it's not begging, and from two standpoints, don't think it's begging just to ask and mention that you have the need. But at the same time, don't go and beg. Don't make a big issue out of the money. Just mention it, keep it brief, and then they'll know what you need. You need to inform them that you're confident God's going to provide this money. And you should be confident. If He's called you to do this, He's going to provide the money. That you realize He's going to do it through His churches, and you're praying for the Lord to just bring on board all the churches He plans on using, because you know that God will provide this money for you. People need to understand that, you know, your confidence is not in those churches. Your confidence is in God. He's going to use the churches, yes, but your confidence is in God. He's the one that provides for you. But equally as important, and sometimes we do not think it is, but in fact, I said equally important, I probably would really say more important, is having their prayer support. I cannot emphasize enough how genuine the need is for people to be praying for you, and how wonderful it is for you to gather some people along the way who really are going to pray for you. You need that. You need some people who are really going to pray for you. And so as you go along, you're seeking to gain their prayer support. You need to emphasize that. You've probably been in a lot of situations where a missionary came and visited you, and they say, more than anything, we need your prayers. And I think that that's a true, sincere comment from the missionary. Now, sometimes, though, it seems like it's just the way you're supposed to start, and then you go on with the rest of the stuff. But let them know you need them to pray for you. Perhaps even create a way that they can make a commitment to prayer support. We always had prayer cards, and we said these prayer cards are back here. We'd like for you all to get one, stick it in your Bible, put it on your refrigerator. Every time you see it, pause for just a few seconds. You don't have to pray a long prayer, just a few seconds. Lord, be with the Borlands, be with their needs, bless their efforts. And just that simple prayer, I can't imagine the magnitude of hundreds of people praying that prayer. And then we had a way that they could get on a list and get some regular updates from us to pray even more specifically if they wanted to. So you're trying to gather prayer support. Another thing that you're trying to emphasize as you go out on deputation is that you need them to come to the field and help you. That all missionaries need that. That the value of short-term mission trips is really incredible. And you're going to say to them, I want you to come. I want you to come see the work that God's doing. I want you to come and help us for a week or two. And you really want to encourage their firsthand participation. And something that I did that I have never really heard a lot of other missionaries do, but I did it as I went, was to encourage that, you may come on a short-term trip, but God might want you to do something long-term. And that you don't have to be a preacher to be a missionary. God might want you to come to the mission field because you have mechanical skills. God might want you to come to the mission field because you have teaching, educational skills where you could teach the missionaries' children, or you could teach the natives in, academic type of learning, not just spiritual learning. And that maybe you've got some medical skills and God would use you to run a medical clinic to meet health needs. And I would throw it out there that people could come on a long-term basis and use the skills and abilities that they have. And so just to help them realize that this is something they can be a part of in a bigger way than just sending a check. I mean, the support's very important, but they can pray, they can come and participate firsthand. These are very, very valuable things, and these are things you emphasize while you're on deputation. It helps you, but it helps the work of missions in general to realize these needs and to be able to educate people this way. Also, you need to view it as a ministry opportunity. It's not all about you being there to talk about you and to get money for you. And even what we said about promoting missions, that's valuable. But this is a ministry opportunity. You are going to meet lost people along the way. And you need to be sure that you're giving the gospel. You need to be sure that you're sensitive to having conversations with people that may allow you to minister to them. You will probably meet people along the way that have hurts and heartaches and things of that nature. You just need to realize that you are a minister of the gospel. And so just because you're on deputation trying to raise funds to go wherever doesn't mean that along the way there are not ministry opportunities. And there are ministry opportunities as you go along on deputation, encountering lost people. Think of your opportunity to help churches to grow in their understanding of missions. You've got a lot of value to give during this time of deputation. So it's not this, oh man, terrible time, got to get through this, got to do it. It is an opportunity to minister. I also think that deputation serves somewhat as a proving ground. It proves your commitment. It proves your calling. It proves your ability to get this done. And I do think that there have been some people who've set out to go do the work of foreign missions, and during deputation, God's used that time to say, no, this is not it. I mean, where they couldn't raise the money they needed. If you can't raise the money that you need, you can't go. And if you can't raise the money, you got to back up and say, well, why not? What's happened here? Why am I not able to raise this money? Why, I believe God would provide for me. Why hasn't He provided for me? And it's part of that proving ground that we're talking about, and we need to be aware of that. And it also provides for closure and transition. You may be leaving a church that you pastored or a church that you've been a member of for many years. You're going to be leaving family and friends. And this time of traveling and being away from just your normal, locality, it begins to let that happen without it happening all at once. There's separation, there's closure, and it's preparing you for the time that you're going to go to the field and not see those folks for a while. And so it has many, many positive benefits. It's very, very important. Now, when you actually are going out and you're visiting these churches, what are the important facts for you to be able to share with the people that you're going to visit? Well, I think you need to, one important fact is tell them when you're going to be on the field. Now you might say, well, how do I know that, Brother Scott, if I don't know when I'll have the money that I need? Well, what you do is you do it by faith. That's what you do. You set a date by faith. And so you think and you listen to things you've learned in mission classes. You talk to other missionaries and ask them questions, and you find out what's a reasonable amount of time to raise support. And I'm telling you that the answer is 12 to 18 months. That's a reasonable amount of time. Now, the variables are, how well known are you? If you're not very well known, if you don't have some other connections here and there, it will probably take a little while for you to raise the funds that you need to go. You might want to get more on the 18-month end of things. How well known is the pastor of your sponsoring church? He may get you some inroads that you could not get yourself, and that might speed the process. Another part of it, and maybe we don't like this, but it's reality. Another part of it is, what's your personality like? If you're a very outgoing, dynamic, charismatic person, you'll draw more attention to yourself, and you probably will raise funds easier than the more low-key, reserved, introverted person. And so again, it's not a matter of right and wrong, it's just a matter of the reality of the situation, and you want to kind of think about how long it will take you to raise funds. So, and then there's going to be factors that just have to do with the calendar. You may say, well, yeah, we could leave, a year would be next November, but then why not stay and have one last Thanksgiving and one last Christmas with the family? So instead of 12 months, we'll make it 14 months. We'll leave after the first of the year. That makes perfect sense. There's no reason to do that. Oh, we could leave next May, but if we stayed till June, we could go to the ABA right before we left. And so we'll stay one extra month. We'll go to the ABA. So there'll be things like that. So it's not an exact science, but you got to look and think and pray and let God lead and direct you somewhere within this time frame of a year to a year and a half. And so when you go to the churches and say, this is our target date to be on the field. And the reason that's important is because it's difficult for churches to support a man who has this open-ended vision. When are you going to leave you on the field? I don't know, whenever we raise the money. Well, everybody'd be great with that if you raise the money in the next few months. But if it's going to be a couple of years, 3 years, people start saying, what? I can't be involved in that. I can't justify as a good steward spending this money when we don't know when you're going to be on the field. We love you, brother. We're excited about what you're doing. Let us know when you're going to get on the field, and then we'll consider supporting you. Well, so, you need to do that up front. Now, does that mean that date's set in concrete? It's do or die? Well, pretty much. If you publicize this date, you've stated it by faith. If you have to change it, you want to be sure that it's a reasonable reason. You don't want to just, well, after thinking about it, we decided we needed to raise an extra couple $100, or after thinking about it, we decided, no, if something just uncontrollable happens that keeps you from going, then be obedient to that. Or if you get there and you don't have the money, you're not even close. Now listen, you don't need all your money to go to the field. You can go to the field 75%, 80% supported, and then new churches will jump on board when you go to the field. So you don't have to have all the money. Most missionaries do go when they're about 80% supported, so don't worry about that. But at the same time, if you're only 50% supported, you better not go. And if the time frame that you've set out has come and gone, you better figure out, okay, what's going on here, Lord? Why don't I have the money? And ask Him if is there something different here? Is there some kind of a change? And if you have to say, listen, because of this, we're not able to go, and then you set another date, if you miss that one, people are going to start withdrawing. People are going to say, no, I'm sorry, I just can't do this anymore. So it's a matter of faith. It's a matter of believing God's called me to do this. He's going to supply the need. I'm not going to be ridiculous and say we're leaving in 4 weeks, but I'm going to give myself what's a reasonable amount of time and trust God to supply the money during that time. I think you need to share with them the date you plan on being the field. Share with them how much support you need. Make sure they understand that. Tell them what kind of items you need. You may need some specific items that you plan on putting on your container, and hey, they might be able to help with that in 2 ways. They might want to take it on as a special project and raise the money for it, or somebody might have what you need. If you can take the time to look at it and see, somebody might actually have exactly what you need. So let them know those things. You need to get some promotional materials together. Your promotional materials, again, I've already mentioned briefly, get a prayer card. I don't think you want it to be real big. Now, there's different ways of doing this. I've seen it done as a card, a kind of a smaller, not like a business card, bigger than that, but maybe say like 3x4 card. And those are attractive and nice. I've seen people do it as a bookmark, kind of a longer thing, and we probably have about the same amount of space as a 3x4 card, but it's just elongated to be as a bookmark. I've seen people do magnets. That's kind of a nice thing to do. And what you might want to do is do something now, and then when you come home on furlough, do something different. You may want to mix it up and change it up a little bit. But whatever way you go, your prayer card really should be pretty simple. You don't want that thing chocked full of information. Of course, it needs to have a nice picture of you and your family. It needs to have some type of a map that indicates, just your location in the world. You need to have on there, like a field address, an email address, information like that. If you have a field address, you might not have that yet, so you might not be able to put that on there. And then maybe just like bullet points, our vision in Kenya is to evangelize the lost, plant indigenous churches, educate men for the ministry. Just quick bullet points or whatever you're planning to do, whatever you're proposing to do. You want to be able to let people know that, but you don't want it so cluttered up with stuff. Now, some people put their birthdays on there. My personal opinion about that is, and it's just my personal opinion, but my personal opinion is don't do that. Because putting your birthday on there, although missionaries started doing that because churches started getting missionaries' birthdays in order to try to do something special for them on their birthday. They're so far away. At least if they get a card or a phone call from us or some care package in the mail that we say is for their birthday, and that is a special thing. But by putting that information on your prayer card, it's like you're saying, I assume you will want to do this, or even I'm trying to get you to do this. And you really don't want that to be the way people look at you. If they ask for your birthdays, wonderful. You can write it down. You can send them an email. You can get them the information, but you don't want to appear that you're, trying to encourage that. And so be, kind of careful about that. Then I think you should have some type of a brochure. I think that like a trifold brochure is nicer than just like a one-page thing. And you can break it up, and you can, both your prayer card and your brochure, I would encourage you to have professionally printed. If you, if you think you've got a really nice printer that would be close to professional grade quality, maybe, but I'm telling you that I just would not do the homemade thing. It's not that much money. It's a one-time expense every 3 years. Why not just make it nice and get it professionally done where it really looks sharp? And I would encourage you to do that. Now, your brochure, of course, will have a little bit more detailed information, whatever you think is important. You might want to put in a bio of yourself and your family. You might want to put in, more details on how do we plan on doing evangelism? How do we plan on doing church planting? How do we plan on, educating these men that are called to the field? And more facts and figures about the country itself. And so you can put more detail in the brochure. Now, what I would do when I went is I'd have these things with me, tucked in my Bible. And as I would talk, I would say, our greatest need is your prayers. And back on our table, you'll notice, and I'd hold the prayer card up. Now, some missionaries pass them out. I never did do that. I felt like it was a waste because most of them got thrown away. So I left it on their shoulders to get the prayer card. Please get one of these, and I'd go through my spiel about on your refrigerator, in your Bible, when you see it, pray for us. The impact is incredible, and believed every word of that, believed it. And then I would also mention them. Now, we've got a tablet of paper back there. If you'd like us to email you from time to time some updates of things that you can pray for, give us your email address, and we'll be sure to email you so you can pray about even more specific things for us if you'd like to do that. And then for those of you that are a detailed person, you like more information. Everybody's not like that, but you might. And I'd pull out the brochure and say, back there on the table, there's brochures. There's plenty of these for everyone. If you would like to have one, please grab it, and that would give you more information. And never put any pressure on them, never made them feel like they had to take the stuff. But a lot of people did, and that was fine, and we just, we didn't want to be wasteful of the materials that we'd spent the Lord's money on. But we wanted to provide information for those that would like to have the information. You also need a video or a PowerPoint presentation. The days of oral presentations are pretty much gone. You might be in a situation every once in a while where the equipment's just not there, or your setup that you would carry with you doesn't, is not going to work in this situation. So every once in a while you might have to give an oral presentation, but those days are pretty much gone. You need a video or a PowerPoint. Now, the nice thing about a PowerPoint is you can change it. You can update it, make it different, switch out pictures, new information you come across you can put in. The thing about a video is that once you make it, unless you are just very, very skilled in something like that and can do it yourself on your computer, once you make it, it's a lot of work, and it's pretty much set. That's pretty much what you're going to say. And then be surprised how quickly things can get out of date. And so, those are kind of the two sides of it. Now, the advantage of a video is it is a set time frame, and you don't have to worry about that. Whereas with a PowerPoint, unless you embed the audio into the slides and put it on a time mechanism, you're in control of it, and you could go long. So the video, by the way, your visual presentation, the video or the PowerPoint, whichever one, needs to be 10 minutes long. No longer than 10 minutes. The only exception to that is if the pastor specifically asks you to do something that would need to be lengthier, then okay, you've got some options there. But It needs to be brief. Most of the time you're in a church service, they've sang songs, you're trying to present your work plus preach a message, and you want to quit on time. You don't want to go long. So, and by the way, these people love you, they care about you, and some of them would sit there and listen to you wax eloquent about what's going on for an hour and would eat it all up, but most people won't. Most people are going to be like, I wish this guy would shut up. I get the picture. I got it. Now, well, that's not very spiritual, Brother Scott. Well, no, but it's real. It's true. So you need to present in about 10 minutes. So if you're the type of person that you're going to get caught up, you're going to say this, that, and the other, and you're going to get off track, and you just can't do that PowerPoint in 10 minutes, then probably a video is a better way for you to go. Or if you feel like you can do the PowerPoint, that's one of the things that I like so much about the PowerPoint. It's very flexible. Very flexible. I could buzz through it real quick if I needed to. Sometimes you need to. Or I could do the normal about 10 minutes. Or if the pastor said, hey, I want you to really emphasize details, so on and so forth, I could give more details about each slide. And, it worked. It worked. So that was what worked for me. And you'll have to figure out what works for you. And then you want some type of a display table. You want something that you can put your a few little articles that you picked up on your survey trip. Little trinket type things that represent the country. Probably some pictures, maybe either in a photo album, or I've noticed a lot of people now will have like a loop going on a laptop computer sitting there. Even something that we did is we took and made a DVD, and then on a portable DVD player we had the loop of the pictures going that way. Something like that. And then, you can do what used to be real common was kind of the old science cardboard 3-fold thing that you put your pictures on and everything. And that's fine, but most people have moved past that to something more attractive. And I would encourage you to think about that. You don't want to go overboard, but you want it to be as attractive as possible. And they make some nice things nowadays for you to do that with, and so you might want to consider that. Something that we did is we had this banner made. It wasn't very expensive, and we had the shape of the country of Kenya, and within it we had this collage of all these different pictures of people, and it had our vision on there, and just a few. It was a 6-foot banner, but it folded up to be just real little. And so we would set that up beside our table, and that was pretty much our visual. And then on the table we had the portable DVD player flashing the pictures, and a few articles as well as our literature there. And so it works really good. You do what's best for you and what you're capable of doing, but you do want it to be as attractive as possible. Now let's talk a little bit about getting appointments. How do you get these appointments when you're going to go out on deputation? Well, you do want to start with an introductory letter that you write, and as well as your pastor writes a letter for you. Could be, probably is going to be 2 separate letters. And then along with that, you'll have some basic information about the work, your brochure, your prayer card, stuff you put together. And so you put these together in packets and you mail them out. And the more you mail out, the better. My goal, if I was starting fresh, my goal would be to mail one to every church in the ABA in the United States. That's what I would do. I would mail one to everyone just as an introduction to let everybody know. And in that introductory letter, I would say, if you'd like for me to come, blah, 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 give me a call, and here's how you can contact me. But here's what you've got to realize. Very, very few pastors will contact you. About the only way that will happen is if they know you personally, so it's as much a friend thing as it is anything, that they want you to come and share with their church, or if by God's grace you mailed this out and it just so happens that that week at church they were talking about we need to take on a new missionary, and the pastor gets it and is like, well, look here, here's an opportunity right here, and so he calls you and has you come. But I mean, that will be so small, so small. You cannot depend on this letter to get your appointments for you. You must make phone calls. There's no way that you are going to get around doing this without making phone calls. So what you want to do is you want to start out and you want to get together a strategy of, kind of what areas do you want to go in, and what you want to try to avoid as much as possible is doing zigzagging, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in our next session. But you want to think, okay, I'm going to spend approximately 8 weeks here, 4 weeks here. You get your areas together. Well, that lets you know what pastors to call. Another part of that planning, though, is who do you know that you could visit, and who does your pastor know that he would have pool with? And in those groups of people, you start making phone calls. Now, your sponsoring pastor might make some of these phone calls for you if he feels comfortable doing that, and he can call some people he knows, and it'd be just as easy and just as well for him to call and make some appointments for you, and then say, okay, now my missionary will be calling you within the next week to kind of firm this all up. Then that's fine. Or you may be the one that makes all the calls. Either way, it's not right or wrong. But if your pastor feels like he could make some calls and help you, that would be great. And sometimes also you can call a pastor within one of your areas that you think is probably kind of like the leading pastor in that area. And if you don't know much about the churches in that area, he might offer to make some calls for you. I wouldn't ask the pastor to do that. But if he said, hey, how many appointments have you got? Would you like me to set up some appointments for you? I would be willing to accept that if I felt like it would be helpful. And he might offer, so you could think through that a little bit. Don't be afraid to call a total stranger. It doesn't matter. If it's one of the Lord's churches and this person's never heard of you and you've never heard of them, but you call and say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm a missionary sent out by such and such church, and I'm going to such and such field of labor, and I just wanted to come and share my burden with your people. If you think that would be appropriate, Pastor, I would like to ask you if you feel like that might be something that potentially I could do sometime. And then you let him let you know if he thinks that's something that he would like to have you do or not. But don't be afraid to call a total stranger. That can be a very, very good appointment. Also attend meetings. Go to your state association meeting, a local association if that's possible. Go to regional associations. Go to mission rallies. Go to the national meeting. Go to meetings where you meet people, and don't go and just stand in a corner. I mean, you don't want to be obnoxious and be the politician, and you're just passing out your literature and thrusting it on everybody and shaking hands and kissing babies and all that stuff. But at the same time, don't go and just stand in a corner. Introduce yourself to people. Hi, my name's so-and-so, and I'm a missionary. And if they might say, well, very, very pleased to meet you, and that's it. Or they might say, oh, really? And they might ask you some questions. So you go and you mingle. You let yourself get known in those situations. Have an organized plan of following up on these appointments that you make. So in other words, thank the pastor for giving you the appointment when you are speaking to him on the phone, and tell him that you'll get back in touch to finalize the details. Pastor, I want to thank you so much for setting up this appointment. I'll give you a call back shortly before the time comes so that we can finalize all the details when it gets a little bit closer. He will appreciate the brevity of the call, and it's going to give you a chance to make sure everything works out as time goes on. When you get off the phone, you want to put together a letter, get it in a package, stick a brochure in there, maybe 4 or 5 prayer cards, not a lot, but 4 or 5 prayer cards in there. send that off thanking the pastor for the appointment, letting the church know that you're looking forward to being there with them. And you want to do this about 1 month ahead of time. As much as possible, about 1 month ahead of time. If you made the appointment and it's 2 months out, then, you can go ahead and get the package all together and everything, but maybe up there where the stamp will cover it up, you want to write a date on there and plan that to be 1 month ahead of the appointment. That way, it's a reminder. Pastors are different. Some will remember and they'll promote and push and say, brother so-and-so's coming, and some hardly no more get off the phone with you and they've forgotten it. It's gone. It's back there. And if it's 2 months out, he may never remember to say anything about it, and you show up that day, it's a surprise to him and his people that you're there. So you don't want that to happen. So about a month ahead of time, you send the letter. Thank you. Looking forward to being with you. Please call me if there's anything specific. And then 7 to 10 days before, a week to 10 days before, call the pastor. Pastor, this is so-and-so. I was just calling to say I'm really looking forward to being with you on such and such date. Does that still look good? Are we still on for our appointment? Yes. Okay then. What time do services start, Pastor? All right. I try to be there about an hour ahead of time. Is that okay, Pastor, or is that too early? And, work these details out with the pastor so that you can get directions if you need them. I know nowadays we've got, MapQuest, and we've got Google Maps, and we've got, most of us got GPSs, and so it's not quite as needful, but you might need directions. You also want to ask the pastor, what do you want me to do, Pastor? Now, normally I come and I have a 10-minute presentation, and then I bring a message. That's what I normally do. What would you like for me to do? And whatever he says he wants you to do what he says he wants you to do. It's his church. It's his pulpit. He's giving you the opportunity. You do what the pastor says. If he says, I want you to come and speak for 5 minutes, then you go and you speak for 5 minutes. That's what you do. Be a person that does what the pastor wants you to do. And you might need, be careful about this, but you might need his help figuring out some lodging as well. You might say, Pastor, I'm not real familiar with the area. Is there a motel that you could recommend that would be good for me to call? And, from that, he might say, oh, brother, don't go to the motel. Come stay with us. And that's up to you, if we stayed in a lot of people's homes, and stayed in a lot of motels. So that's up to you, what you want to do. But then he might just say, oh, yeah, here's a motel. He might say, I tell you what, I'll make the reservation for you and our church will cover that. Or he might not. But here's what I'm trying to get across to you. You need the information, but you don't want to come across as trying to get them to do something for you. That's not it. God will take care of it. God will provide. So you trust in Him. Well, next time we'll talk about deputation strategy.